while folks in the U.S. are busy arguing over whether their coffee needs sugar priced like diamonds. Our Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is looking toward Latin America and sighing. Guys, can we not copy Europe's regulatory circus? These digital taxes aren't supposed to be a contest for most bureaucratic thriller of the year. This is our backyard, remember. Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, responded to a letter from Public Policy Solutions warning that Latin America is importing a full-blown EU-style regulatory nightmare, digital taxes, data restrictions, and AI rules aimed squarely at American tech giants like Google and Meta. Washington says it's ready to block these moves to protect free trade and prevent a global regulatory mess. Bottom line? The U.S. isn't about to let its own backyard turn into a minefield for American innovation.
Economies and financial markets are nonlinear systems where outcomes depend on countless intersecting factors, from geopolitical shifts to technological breakthroughs to demographic changes. Investor and analyst consensus often falls short not because experts lack skill, but because consensus reflects just one possible path at a given moment. History shows that similar statements from central banks, regulators, or political leaders in different eras often led to very different outcomes, reminding us how fundamentally multi-path reality is. Let's walk through several recent examples of digital-era regulation, examples that echo today's debates around taxes, data limits, and AI rules, each one illustrating how wildly outcomes can diverge. First example, France's digital services tax in 2019. During the tech boom and rising US-EU trade tensions, France introduced a 3% tax on digital advertising and data revenues for companies with over 750 million euros in global turnover. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire emphasized it as a temporary measure on the way to an OECD deal. Analysts, backed by USTR reports, called it discriminatory toward U.S. giants like Google and Amazon, predicting a tariff war. Indeed, the U.S. launched a Section 301 investigation and threatened $2.4 billion in tariffs. But by 2021, both sides reached a compromise under the OECD framework, pausing the tax. Instead of the expected chaos, diplomacy softened the conflict, another reminder that real life doesn't follow linear predictions. Second example, Europe's GDPR in 2018. Amid post-crisis recovery and data scandals like Cambridge Analytica, the EU pushed for unified privacy rules. Commissioner Vera Jourova and Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker projected global leadership and innovation boosts. Analysts, from Brookings to HBR, forecast rising compliance costs of 8 to 10% and a slowdown in cross-border data flows. In reality, GDPR led to 6.2 billion euros in fines by 2025, mostly for non-European firms, and inspired global copycats like Brazil's LGPD. Meanwhile, the Privacy Shield was struck down in 2020. Regulation evolved under court rulings in ways few anticipated. Third example, Australia's News Media Bargaining Code in 2021. The ACPRUCC's Rod Sims pitched it as fixing a market imbalance by requiring Google and Meta to pay for news content. Communications Minister Paul Fletcher predicted sustainable journalism funded by $200 million annually. Analysts warned platforms might block news entirely. What happened? Over 30 deals were signed, delivering more than $200 million a year. But by 2024, Meta walked away from renewals, triggering newsroom cuts and regulatory reviews. The model then spread globally, inspiring Canada's C-18. A simple policy became a complex global ripple. Fourth example, India's data localization rules in 2018 to 2019. With digital growth exploding and data sovereignty rising, the RBI required payment data to be stored domestically. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and business leaders like Mukesh Ambani emphasized national control. USTR and analysts warned of trade barriers and operational delays for U.S. firms. Eventually, companies like Amazon adapted by investing in local infrastructure. By 2023, India's new DPDPA shifted from strict localization toward a blacklist model. National priorities evolved alongside global supply chains. Today's concerns about EU-style digital taxes and data restrictions in Latin America echo all these earlier debates. History shows a wide range of possible outcomes, from diplomatic compromises to court-driven resets to global policy ripple effects. Consensus always captures just one branch of reality. Actual reality is broader, shaped by interactions most forecasts miss. Long-term decisions demand distance, systems thinking, and historical perspective to understand the full range of possible outcomes rather than clinging to whichever narrative happens to be trending.
And here we go again. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is waving a bright red flag about a regulatory nightmare brewing in Latin America. EU-style digital taxes, AI shackles on U.S. tech, Washington promising to shut the party down. The market twitched, tech stocks dipped a little, and analysts instantly split into two camps: apocalypse now or heaven is coming, as if one signal hands us the script of the future. Forecasting in this industry is pure circus. Every time someone declares, "Finally, we know exactly what's going to happen," they cling to microsignals like a drowning man to a straw, and suddenly every expert is on air, preaching like a prophet. And the market? It just chuckles and walks away like a stubborn cat that couldn't care less about your headlines. Look at history. France's 2019 digital tax. Everyone screamed trade war, and it ended in an OECD compromise. The EU's 2018 GDPR predicted chaos, delivered global standards. Australia's 2021 news code, platforms will die. But they adapted. India's 2018 data localization, trade barriers everywhere. But it evolved, not collapsed. Same bold statements, wildly different finales. Speakers were confident then, they're confident now, and reality still enjoys surprising all of them. Trusting the news noise is like trying to tango with a hurricane, lots of spinning, zero progress. Trust the long game of the market, you'll keep your sanity. Stay calm, keep a balanced portfolio, follow your plan, and let the analysts keep predicting yesterday's weather. Life's too short for this drama.